love starting the video with it's a signal that one is very high status and knows exactly what they're about to talk about, and they're on point, and they're so confident about themselves that they start every sentence with because they're like, if someone's gonna call me out for saying too much, like they don't even get it. They don't even get what I'm about to say because it's gonna be amazing. So yeah, other than that, I was just thinking about this woman who says, she's like very quick to accuse people of, being too dramatic. And I kind of want to like think about how, what is drama? Like what is it that people mean when they say they don't like drama? And I think, what most people sort of imply by that is that they don't like it when people are spinning their wheels emotionally, but they're not like really finding a resolve. But what I think, and then it's just like this continuous, never-ending, like, oh my God, I have to listen to this person talk about this stuff, and it's like they always have the same problems. They never like are self-aware enough that they come to some kind of decision that, hey, maybe I need to do something differently, because like it seems like the common denominator with all these very intense situations seems to be me. So maybe I need to maybe some part of me is like a drama addict, or like an adrenaline junkie in that sense of like, I like to be in these relationships that are very volatile, and I like to be in social groups that are very controversial. There's a lot of controversy and a lot of like pettiness. But when this woman says that she doesn't like drama, like what she is actually referring to is not so much this. Like, I don't think this is, because that's like that's what I just described. I think that is like something that would be annoying, to be like, to talk to a person and then they're very, just dramatic and not really, looking for a solution to their problems. But, what this woman does, the way she sort of judges anything that is like outside of a normal, that is beyond what she thinks is a normal range of emotional expression. So she has like this very narrow range of like what she allows as emotionally acceptable descriptive things, even if you're just like accurately describing a situation that had some emotional charge to it. It's like her ethics says you're not allowed to have any sort of emotion that is slanted and like perhaps like some negative, has some negative element to it, or has something that stirs up feelings that are stronger, and to like kind of describe like the impact of something, even like we all go through life, and sometimes there are circumstances that are very like difficult emotional things to deal with, and like what are friends for if you can't like go to them and tell them about a situation, because you're afraid that you're going to be judged, because like they don't want to hear anything that is too dramatic. So it's like you have to like gaslight yourself into pretending that like you don't have feelings about these things, and you're not allowed to like work out your feelings about something in a verbal format, because this other person has this, you know, very like rigid judgmental way of, you know, viewing emotions, you know, emotionality. So yeah, and I think that is something that is fairly prevalent in this world, like where you're not really encouraged in most relationships, or a lot of relationships, to talk about feelings that are more, you know, that are beyond a certain range of what people think is, you know, gonna get you labeled as in the category of too dramatic, you know. But so it's not like, so their point of reference is not, is this a healthy human way of expressing and like healing, and can I be helpful with this person with like, you know, acceptance, appreciation, and, you know, listening. Their qualification for like what is a good interaction is as long as it's not too dramatic, you know. So it's like how emotionally unsatisfying is it, you know, to be this kind of person, you know. Like, what is it, like they must be like pushing down all sorts of things, like any sort of thing where someone slighted them, any sort of thing where like perhaps they were agreed, like what if there is like something really egregious happens to them, and then, you know, because they've practiced this pattern of thinking of like, oh, I don't want to be too dramatic, it's like if they at some point need to like confide in somebody that something horrible has happened to them, like now all of a sudden like they will feel guilt and shame because like they're not allowed to like talk about things in those terms, you know. They're not allowed to talk about like, oh my god, it was so horrible, I fucking, you know, this person stole all this money from me and I feel like humiliated and embarrassed and stupid and just, you know, like things like that, you know, like things happen to us in our lives and we need to be able to talk about them. And yes, you know, there are people who sort of like they'll take advantage of, you know, like they'll take up all the space in a conversation with telling you like, oh my god, like all this gossip, and, you know, but it's so easy to distinguish a person who's just on another rant about, you know, this week's like nonsense that they've decided to involve themselves in, as opposed to like somebody who's like every once in a while like something comes up and then they like want to like have a friend to talk about it, and then like, you know, like these type of people who have this are like the drama police, you know, like they will be, you know, avoidant and emotionally unavailable for that. And so it's like, I don't know, I think it's interesting, and, you know, I mean, and it always kind of surprises me, like how the value system of our society, how like we don't like, because there is like a more correct way, a more healthy way for human beings to have interactions. But it's not, it's sort of like everything is kind of, all the really important stuff about being an authentic human being that is healthy, has healthy ways of relating with people, and has healthy relationships, like that is all stuff we have to like sort of sift through, and like really kind of like, we have to be the kind of person who's like really like interested in finding that within ourselves, and by, you know, studying psychology and spirituality and all the, you know, observing people, studying ourselves, being present with our feelings. And, it's like all that stuff, all this work that we have to do to become like healthy human beings is so not part of the mainstream that it seems like esoteric occult knowledge, but it really is odd that, just the normal, healthy way of being a human being is not like more readily, it's not like easy to find a path to just like going back to finding yourself and being like in harmony with your environment and having, a healthy outlook in life and just feeling good about yourself and feeling good about, other people. And yeah, it surprises me that there's not a whole lot of, really, it's just not more widely practiced to just be normal and healthy. That is not really what our society values as a real ethic. We have all these religions, and none of them really fully, incorporate a healthy human being with authentic, honest feelings and forms of expressions, and normal, an outlet for their normal and healthy desires, and a pathway to like, being, just, what we are, in a, healthy way. So I do feel like I am finding more of what that means, to be me in a healthy way, and to sort of put that, what is comfortable for me, and to not like, recognizing that this deficit in society of healthy values, that like kind of letting go of that and making peace with that, like that ultimately the truth that I'm looking for has to come from many different places, and I kind of have to like put them together inside myself to really see what really fits and what is really true. That is helping me see like, okay, like I don't need to worry so much about what the people out there think about me, because what is out there is so distorted and so off the mark for the most part, and everything you kind of have to take with a grain of salt, and everyone is going to be subject to being really on the mark on one thing, and then way off the mark on something else, if you get to know them well. And you kind of have to allow that, and you kind of have to allow people to be a little bit immature in some ways, or unintelligent in some ways that you wouldn't expect, and then kind of respect that they have a lot of wisdom in this area, but like this other way they're kind of like still working things out, and they're still trying to do a persuasion on themselves and others to like convince themselves of something that isn't really true. So I don't know, I feel like my breathing room is expanding because of that, because I feel like I can take up more space within myself, and I don't have to make myself so small and feel like there's something wrong with me, that I've have found myself in this place of often feeling frustrated and isolated in this world, and just not really feeling helped. And I think it's okay, as long as I'm doing the best that I can, and I don't have to like push myself so hard to the point where it's like, why am I even doing this? Like, because there's only so much one person can do to really shift things in the world around them, and to really find their own way. It's you're going to run up against challenges where you're not necessarily going to be equipped to deal deal with the solution, to find a solution. You might just you might make progress on a lot of things, and then what you get hung up on is just like, well, this area is just like, why can't I figure out how to make this work? Why can't I be a healthy person who can have these types of things? But in those areas, it's like, it's better to like be like, okay, like my eyes are open. I am looking for a way to do this better, but I need to also like give myself a lot of credit because I've made so much progress in these other ways, and I don't need to make myself so responsible for being like this perfect person in a world that is highly challenging and very imperfect, and like it misleads us and misguides us into all these wrong directions, that I can't hold myself with too much disappointment because I've been off the mark or led astray in some areas, because it's like we develop habits sometimes that are difficult to change because we have like coping mechanisms, and it can take a while to really figure out how to really solve certain things that are not just our problem, but they're like a systemic problem, and I think that's where we can kind of like take a step back and say, well, what, I'm okay with me, I'm okay with where I'm at. I might not be perfect, but you know what, I like me, and I have the right outlook. My outlook is that I want to improve, and I want to be happy, and I want other people to be happy, and I want the people around me to be happy, and I am functioning from that premise. I can't necessarily do everything that I wish I could in this world, but I am approaching things in a way that allows for things to improve. I allow for things to be better, and I'm not gonna be a person who stands in the way. If somebody tells me that there's a better way of doing something, and I will listen to them, and if they're correct, I'm the type of person who will change, and I will do it better, and I won't it won't be like a big, I won't put up that big of a fight. I mean, like, compared to what most people would, like there might be some, I'm not saying I'm perfect, I'm just saying that like I'm very likely to agree with a person if I see like how they're doing it better than me, or like where I'm off the mark, So I liked putting all this stuff into words. It's fun to like do this sort of process of verbalizing my thoughts and feelings. That way I don't feel like I'm just like spinning around inside my head and not really making any progress. Anyhow, thanks for listening, and have a good one.